A small patch of grass rests under moonlight, and everything looks softened at the edges, as if the world has decided to speak in a quieter voice tonight. The blades of grass hold tiny beads of dew, each one catching a pale silver shimmer, like little lanterns that don't need to shine very brightly to feel important. Somewhere nearby, water sits still and patient, and a faint ribbon of fog drifts low, unbothered by schedules. The night air feels cool and clean. It moves slowly across the ground, slipping between stems, settling into the folds of leaves. Even the most ordinary corner of a yard can feel like a gentle wilderness at this hour, especially when you let your attention soften and allow the small things to become enough. And honestly, even the plants seem like they're practicing deep breathing. The grass rises and falls with the breeze like it's in a meditation class. The trees stand there looking very calm and wise, as if they've read all the best books on relaxation. They don't mention it, of course. They're not trying to impress anyone. Trees have nothing to prove. Welcome to Sleepy Nature Sleep, where the wild grows soft and curiosity becomes calm. Tonight, let your thoughts follow the rhythm of the earth, your breathing settle like evening wind, and your mind wander gently through the quiet wild. If this place feels peaceful, you're always welcome back. No membership card required, only your presence. Imagine us all gathered around a quiet campfire that doesn't crackle too loudly, where the warmth is gentle and the conversation is mostly the comfortable kind made of pauses. And if you'd like to support the channel, it helps us keep the nightlights low and the nature facts cozy. Think of it as tossing another soft log onto the fire, one that smells faintly like cedar and calm decisions. Tonight, our attention drifts towards something simple, something familiar, something often overlooked and yet quietly astonishing. We're following the calming cycle of dandelions, from bud to bloom, and onward into their airy, drifting seeds. A dandelion does not rush. It doesn't perform. It doesn't worry about being fashionable. It simply becomes what it becomes, right on time. It opens when the light is kind. It rests when the day grows heavy. It lets go when the wind arrives. So as you settle in, let your thoughts become lighter. Let them loosen their grip. Let them float a little, the way dandelion seeds do, softly, gently, without needing a destination right away. In the quiet of night, the ground feels like a gentle library, not a loud one with shushing and harsh lights, more like a cozy place where the shelves are made of soil and roots, and every page smells faintly of rain. The earth holds layers of old seasons the way a tree holds rings, softly, patiently, without announcing what it knows. And in that small patch of grass, maybe at the edge of a path near a fence beside a garden bed, dandelions return again and again. Their leaves flatten into little green stars. Their buds gather themselves like folded umbrellas. Their blooms appear like small suns that don't mind being ignored. Which brings us to tonight's gentle question. What does the ground remember when dandelions return? Not in a mystical way, not in a grand cosmic sense. Just in the practical, quiet way nature remembers, through patterns, through tiny changes, through the familiar feeling of, this has happened before. Does the soil remember where last year's roots held steady? Does it remember the exact place a seed landed and decided to stay? Does it remember the softness of spring sunlight warming the surface, or the weight of summer heat pressing down gently like a warm blanket? A dandelion has its own kind of memory too, carried in its shape and timing. It doesn't think the way we do. It doesn't replay conversations from 10 years ago at 2 a.m., which, frankly, is an excellent life skill and one we can all admire from a distance. Instead, it responds. It opens, it closes, it waits, it stores, it releases. It follows conditions the way a sleepy traveler follows the glow of a porch light. And maybe the ground remembers in the same way, not by naming things, but by holding them, not by worrying, but by keeping the door open. The earth receives what falls into it. It keeps moisture. It keeps minerals. It keeps tiny tunnels made by worms and roots. It keeps the quiet evidence of every season passing through. So tonight, as we move through the cycle of the dandelion, we'll keep that question nearby, like a smooth stone in your pocket. What does the ground remember when dandelions return? You don't need to answer it. You don't need to solve it. It's not a puzzle. It's just a soft thought to rest beside you while the night does what it does best, slowing everything down. And if your mind wanders, that's fine. Even the wind wanders. The wind is famously uncommitted, and yet it still manages to be useful. Picture a small landscape, nothing dramatic, nothing loud. A simple stretch of ground where grass grows, where light falls, where a few wild plants quietly keep their routines. The air is cool and faintly sweet, and the night has a way of making even ordinary places feel like they belong to a calmer world. Somewhere nearby, a tree holds still branches overhead. The leaves barely move, just enough to make a soft hush when the breeze passes through. Insects hum in the distance at a low, steady volume, like they're trying to be respectful of bedtime. Underfoot, the soil is layered and alive, not in a busy, frantic way, in a slow, steady way. Tiny organisms move through it, roots thread it, moisture collects in its small spaces. The earth holds heat from the day and releases it gradually, like a warm mug cooling slowly on a table. This is the sort of place where dandelions feel at home. Dandelions are often called weeds, but that word is mostly a matter of opinion, and plants do not seem particularly concerned about our opinions. A dandelion simply grows where it can, responding to sunlight and soil and water. It tends to appear in places that have been disturbed, lawns, path edges, cracks near sidewalks, small openings where the ground is available. Their leaves form a rosette, spreading close to the ground. Their roots reach down in a single sturdy taproot, storing energy. Their flowers are bright and many, made up of tiny florets gathered together into one cheerful face. And the river of time in this world moves slowly. The dandelion's changes come in small steps. A bud gathers itself, a bloom opens, a flower closes, seeds form. A white globe appears like a little moon on a stem. Then, when the air is ready, the seeds drift away. The river doesn't rush. It's not trying to impress anyone, and neither is the dandelion. There is something deeply soothing about that. No performance, no urgency, only timing. So tonight, we'll move through this gentle life cycle the way you might walk through a quiet garden at dusk, slowly, noticing details, letting the mind settle into the pace of the natural world. Let your attention rest on textures, the smoothness of a stem, the serrated edge of a leaf, the cool bead of dew. Let your thoughts soften the way the night softens the landscape. We are here in a small place, with a small story. And that is more than enough. In the early stage of a dandelion story, the bud appears like a small green promise. It sits close to the ground, held gently on a stem that doesn't hurry. The bud is compact, wrapped in protective layers, like a tiny parcel tied up neatly for later. At night, it looks even quieter. The moonlight doesn't demand attention. It simply rests on the bud's surface, highlighting edges and curves. A bead of dew clings to one side and stays there, as if it has found a comfortable seat. Inside, the flower is not yet open, but it is already becoming. This is one of the calmest truths in nature. Change can happen without spectacle. The dandelion bud doesn't make announcements. It doesn't send reminders. It doesn't write a to-do list. It just quietly prepares. In simple terms, that bud is a cluster of future florets, waiting for the right conditions. Light, temperature, timing. These are the gentle cues. The plant gathers energy from its leaves and root. It stores, it balances, it continues. You can almost feel the patience in it. And if you listen closely, the whole patch of grass seems patient too. The blades stand still. The soil holds steady. Even the air moves like it has nowhere urgent to be, drifting slowly, brushing past the bud without disturbing it. There's a soothing lesson here, offered without words. Waiting is not empty. Waiting can be part of the work. The bud is not behind. It is not late. It is exactly where it needs to be. It's simply resting in the stage before opening, like a closed book beside a bed, full of pages, but in no rush to be read. Sometimes our minds treat stillness like a problem to solve, but nature treats stillness like a skill. The bud practices it beautifully. So tonight, you can practice it too. Let your breath be steady and unforced. Let your thoughts gather gently, then settle. You don't have to open into anything right now. You don't have to bloom on command. You can be like the bud, quietly becoming without pressure. And somewhere in the grass, the dandelion continues its calm preparation, wrapped up neatly, waiting for light that will arrive in its own gentle time. Before a dandelion ever lifts a flower into the air, it makes itself comfortable close to the ground. Its leaves spread outward in a rosette, forming a low green star against the soil. The shape is simple, but quietly clever, like a well-folded blanket. At night, the rosette seems even more settled. The leaves rest flat, their edges slightly jagged, like they were cut by someone who enjoys a decorative flourish. Dew collects along the veins and margins, tracing the leaf structure with tiny silver highlights. This close to the ground posture has a calm practicality. Being low helps the plant catch warmth held in the soil. It also keeps the leaves sheltered from stronger winds, and it places the dandelion right in the zone where moisture lingers longest, where the air is cooler and thicker with quiet. In gentle science terms, this rosette is a base of energy collection. Leaves gather light during the day, turning it into sugars through photosynthesis. That energy is shared with the rest of the plant, including the root, which stores it like a savings account that doesn't judge your spending habits. And yes, the dandelion is very good at saving. It doesn't impulse buy. It doesn't panic shop. It simply collects what it needs and keeps it for later. A surprisingly mature strategy for a plant that people often underestimate. The rosette also quietly competes for space, shading the ground around it. But even that can be framed as calm presence rather than conflict. The dandelion does not posture. It does not argue. It just spreads out gently and becomes part of the landscape. There's something soothing about that kind of confidence. No sharp edges and attitude. Only the calm statement of, "I am here." And as you watch the rosette, you might notice how it mirrors the feeling of settling into bed, spreading out, finding a comfortable position, lowering yourself into warmth, letting the world stay above you while you rest closer to the quiet, closer to the ground. Tonight, you can borrow the dandelion's approach. Stay low, stay simple, gather what you need, and let the rest drift away. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to rise into the air yet. For now, it's enough to rest like a small green star in the grass, quiet, steady, and completely allowed to be still. In the quiet hours, when the air feels cooler and the ground holds a little warmth like a secret, a dandelion begins one of its gentlest motions. A stem lengthens, not with drama, not with speed, just with the calm certainty of something that knows it has time. The stem lifts from the rosette like a slow thought becoming visible. It rises from the center, pale green and smooth, and it carries the unopened bud as if it were holding a small lantern that hasn't been lit yet. If you look closely, the stem is simple and practical. It is hollow inside, which helps it stay light while still standing steady. It bends a little when the breeze arrives, then returns to place without complaint. It does not argue with wind. It doesn't try to win. It simply moves with what comes and keeps on being itself. That kind of quiet flexibility has a certain dignity. From a gentle science perspective, this rising is a shift in the plant's focus. Energy that has been gathered in the leaves and stored in the root can now be used to lift the flower upward toward air and light and the attention of passing pollinators. The stem is like a calm bridge, connecting the plant's grounded base to the open space above. And still, it all feels unhurried. The dandelion does not launch its bloom. It doesn't do a countdown. There's no grand opening ceremony. The stem simply continues to lengthen until the bud sits a little higher, as if the plant has adjusted its pillow. If you've ever watched something small grow slowly, you know the feeling. It's almost like the world is breathing in a calmer rhythm. The grass around it sways faintly. The dew clings and then slides. A tiny movement that seems enormous only because everything else is so still. There's a soft invitation here for you too. Your breath can be like this stem, rising gently, lowering gently, not forcing anything, not trying to prove that you're relaxing correctly, just noticing the slow lift of the inhale, the easy return of the exhale. And if your mind starts to reach for a plan, you can let it soften. You don't need to bloom into solutions tonight. You can simply lengthen into rest, one quiet breath at a time. Somewhere near the center of the dandelion's rosette, the stem continues its patient rise, holding the bud like a promise that doesn't demand attention. It's coming, not fast, not loud, just steadily. There comes a moment, so gentle you might miss it, when the dandelion bud begins to open. The protective green layers loosen slightly, like hands unclenching. Then, slowly, a warm yellow appears, soft at first, then brighter, as if the plant is remembering how to glow. In moonlight, the bloom looks like a tiny sun that has decided to be polite about it. It doesn't glare. It doesn't demand the center of the stage. It simply opens its face to the air and becomes what it was quietly preparing to be. What we call a dandelion flower is actually many small flowers gathered together. Tiny florets, each one a small unit of bloom, arranged in a careful circle. It's like a community of petals, all cooperating without needing a meeting or a group chat. They just coordinate efficiently, peacefully. Honestly, it's a little impressive. As the flower opens, the stem holds it steady. The leaves remain low, like a calm base. The night air brushes over the bloom, carrying faint scents and coolness. And in the stillness, the yellow feels almost surprising, like a warm thought drifting into a quiet mind. The bloom doesn't last forever, and it doesn't try to. It's here for a while, and it does what it does. It offers light-like color, nectar, pollen, and a gentle invitation to the small visitors who move through the world by scent and subtle cues. But before any visitor arrives, the bloom itself is enough. There is something restful about the way nature makes beauty without striving. The dandelion does not worry about its appearance. It does not check reflections. It does not wonder if yellow is still in. It simply opens. And somehow, that simplicity becomes its elegance. If you're listening tonight with a tired mind, you can borrow that ease. You don't have to be impressive. You don't have to perform calm. You can simply be here, opening into rest the way the dandelion opens into bloom, slowly, in your own timing, without any inner applause. Let the image settle. A circle of yellow and dark grass, dew shimmering nearby, a quiet hush in the air. The bloom sits there like a small lantern, bright but gentle, as if it's saying, "You can soften now. You can rest now. There's nothing you need to chase." And as your breathing steadies, imagine your thoughts loosening around the edges, unfolding into a quieter shape, like petals opening, one by one, into the soft night. When the dandelion opens, it becomes part of a calm routine that has been happening for a very long time. Not an urgent routine, not a rushed one, more like a gentle exchange, an offering and a visit, repeated across seasons with the steadiness of morning light. The bloom holds nectar and pollen, and the air carries faint signals to the small creatures who move through the world with patient purpose. Bees, for example, drift in with a soft hum that feels like background music rather than interruption. A bee might hover for a moment, then settle. Its movements are focused, but not frantic. It gathers what it needs, and the flower offers what it can. This is one of the quiet cooperations of nature, pollination. As insects visit flowers for food, they carry pollen from one bloom to another. The dandelion does not ask loudly. It doesn't wave signs. It simply provides, and the visitors arrive when the conditions are right. It's a kind of partnership that feels almost polite. Even a moth passing in low light can play a small role, moving like a drifting shadow that briefly becomes a participant in the flower story. There is no ceremony, no fanfare, just the quiet usefulness of a visit. And the dandelion itself stays relaxed through all of it. It doesn't tense up. It doesn't micromanage. It simply holds steady and lets the exchange happen. If the dandelion were the type to give advice, thankfully, it isn't very preachy. It might say something like, offer what you can, rest when you need, let the rest unfold, which is not bad guidance for bedtime. As you listen, imagine the small scene in slow motion, the bloom open, the grass around it dark and soft, the air cool enough to feel clean in your lungs. A bee approaches, pauses, then settles into a gentle rhythm. The world is doing its quiet work without any pressure from you. And if your mind has been busy today, jumping from thought to thought like a caffeinated squirrel in a library, you can let it become slower now. The bee does not rush. The flower does not rush. The night does not rush. Your breath can become the steady hum in the background, in and out, like a soft and regular tide. Somewhere in the grass, the dandelion continues offering its small, golden center to the world, and the world, in return, moves through it gently, taking what it needs, leaving behind what helps the next step of the cycle begin. In daylight, we rely on shapes and colors to navigate, but for many insects, the world is guided by scent and subtle traces in the air, an invisible map drawn in drifting molecules. A meadow, even a small lawn edge patch, becomes a quiet network of signals. Sweet notes from flowers, earthy tones from soil, faint green scents from leaves. A dandelion bloom adds its own soft signature to this map. Not loud, not overwhelming, just a gentle sweetness that rides on the breeze. And the breeze, patient, curious, carries that scent along, weaving it between grass stems and past small stones. If you imagine the air as water, then scent becomes a current. It flows, it eddies, it gathers in pockets. It slides around the shape of a leaf. It lingers near the ground where the night air is heavier and cooler. It dissolves and reforms, always changing, always calm. Insects follow this invisible trail with quiet precision. A bee may pause midair, adjusting its angle slightly. A hover, a turn, a small drift forward. It isn't guessing wildly. It's reading the air like a slow, living compass. And there is something soothing in that image. Guidance without strain, movement without panic. The dandelion doesn't chase its visitors. It doesn't market itself. It simply releases its scent into the night and lets the wind do the delivery. The wind, in its own unbothered way, seems happy to help. The wind doesn't rush either. It's not trying to impress anyone. It just glides through, carrying messages like a very relaxed courier. If the breeze had a job title, it would be something like Senior Specialist in Quiet Deliveries. And you, listening here, don't need to figure out the night. You don't need to solve anything. You can let the air guide you in a simpler way, through breath. Inhale and imagine cool air traveling gently in. Exhale and imagine your thoughts drifting outward, becoming lighter, less detailed, less demanding. Like scent in the breeze, your worries can spread out until they are too thin to hold shape. The meadow, this small, ordinary place, continues to hold its invisible map. The dandelion bloom holds its quiet sweetness. The air carries it along. And the night, as always, turns down the volume on everything, inviting the mind to stop gripping and start floating. A dandelion bloom has a gentle rhythm. It opens when the light is kind, and it closes when the day grows heavier. Not as a dramatic ending, more like a calm habit, a quiet folding inward that says, "That's enough for now." This opening and closing is part of the plant's timing, guided by light, temperature, and the subtle signals of the day. In simple terms, it's a kind of daily pattern, almost like the dandelion's version of keeping a bedtime routine, which is comforting because routines can feel like soft rails that guide us when we're tired. The bloom opens into the day, offering its yellow face to the world, and later it tucks itself in. Petals draw inward, the circle becomes smaller. The bright disk becomes a compact shape again, as if the flower is pulling a blanket up to its chin. There is no struggle in this, no last-minute scramble to stay open. The dandelion doesn't cling to the moment. It doesn't bargain with the evening. It simply closes, and in that closing, it protects what comes next. Because the cycle is not finished with the bloom. After pollination and time, the plant begins to shift towards seed making, and for that, a quieter, more sheltered phase helps. So the closing is not an ending. It's a transition, one of the softest kinds nature makes. If you've had a busy day, you may recognize the feeling. You don't need more input. You don't need more brightness. You want things to fold inward. Lights dim, voices soften, thoughts slow down until they feel less sharp around the edges. And tonight, you can let yourself do exactly that. You can close the petals of attention. You can stop tracking everything. You can release the need to stay open to tasks, messages, plans. The day has had its time. Now the night takes its turn. Imagine the dandelion in the grass, closing calmly while the air cools. Dew begins to gather again. The meadow's small sounds fade slightly, as if even the insects are lowering their voices to a respectful murmur. And in that softening, your breath can settle too. In and out, slow and steady, as if you're folding inward safely, as if you're becoming smaller in the best way, less stretched, less pulled, more held. The dandelion rests, and the world keeps turning gently around it. And you too are allowed to rest, without needing to explain why, without needing to finish everything, without needing to stay open when the night is inviting you to close. As the light softens, the dandelion's bright yellow face begins to tuck itself away. The petals fold inward with a calm, practiced ease, as if the plant has done this 1,000 times and never once felt the need to make it dramatic. The circle becomes smaller. The bloom that looked like a little sun now becomes a closed bundle again, green around the edges, yellow hidden inside. It's the botanical version of turning off a lamp and pulling the blanket up. Not because anything is wrong, but because it's time. And it happens so gently that the world around it hardly changes. The grass remains still. The air stays cool and quiet. A faint breeze passes through, and the closed flower head simply sways, then steadies again. From a gentle science view, This closing is part of the dandelion's rhythm. Many flowers open and close in response to light, temperature, and the daily cycle. It helps protect the delicate inner parts. It can also support the next stage of the plant's work, when energy shifts away from display and toward development. But even without the details, it feels like a simple truth. Nature knows how to rest. The dandelion does not try to stay bright forever. It doesn't cling to being open. It doesn't worry that closing means it has missed something. It simply folds inward and trusts the cycle. And in that trust, there's something you can borrow tonight. If your mind has been staying open too long, open to tasks, open to worries, open to all the small demands that keep tapping your shoulder, you can let it close now. Not shut down in a harsh way, just fold inward in a safe way. Imagine your thoughts like petals. They can draw closer together. They can stop reaching. They can become quiet. You don't have to keep shining. You don't have to keep producing. You can simply rest. Somewhere nearby, dew begins to gather again. Tiny beads form along the blades of grass, and the closed dandelion bud-like head holds still in the moonlight. The whole scene looks like it has lowered its volume by a few notches, as if the night has kindly pressed the dim button. And if you listen closely, you might notice the soft rhythm underneath it all. Breath, breeze, the slow turning of time. The dandelion has closed. The world continues. And you are safe to close your eyes too. When the dandelion closes, it doesn't become nothing. It becomes quiet. And in the quiet, it begins a kind of hidden work. Slow, internal, patient. The flower head now looks like a small green lantern held up on its stem. The bright petals are tucked inside, and the outer bracts wrap around like protective hands. In moonlight, the shape seems modest and unassuming, as if it's trying not to be noticed, which is perfect, because the next stage of the story doesn't need attention. It needs time. Inside the closed head, the florets that once formed the yellow disc begin to shift towards seed development. Tiny structures form, little by little, without any visible signal from the outside. The dandelion is not performing, it is preparing. If you could shrink down and step inside that closed head very gently, without disturbing anything, you would find a small architecture of future. Each floret holds the beginnings of a seed. Each seed will later have its own tuft, its own airy parachute, its own chance to drift. But tonight, none of that is in a hurry. The stem holds steady. The leaves remain low. The ground stays quietly supportive beneath it all, holding moisture and minerals like a calm pantry that never runs out of basics. And there is a soothing lesson in this hidden work. Not all growth looks like motion. Some growth looks like resting. Sometimes we assume that if we are quiet, we are not doing anything. But nature quietly proves the opposite. The closed dandelion is still moving forward, still changing, still becoming, just in a way that is private and slow. Tonight, you can allow yourself the same kind of privacy. You don't have to show progress. You don't have to prove you're improving. You don't have to keep the lights on inside your head. You can let your thoughts dim. You can let your body do its own hidden work, loosening muscles, settling breath, smoothing the edges of the day. Somewhere in the grass, the dandelion holds its green lantern shape in the night air, the work continues quietly inside it. And in the same calm way, you can let sleep begin its own gentle process inside you, unseen, unforced, and perfectly on time. If you watch the dandelion closely during this quieter stage, you might notice the simple steadiness of its stem. It stands there like a slender support beam, holding the closed head above the rosette, keeping it lifted just enough to meet the air. The stem is smooth, pale green, and lightly flexible. It bends when a breeze passes through, then returns to center. It doesn't fight the movement. It doesn't overreact. It doesn't dramatize a gust like it's auditioning for a weather report. It simply sways, and then it steadies. In gentle science terms, this stem is doing basic, important work, positioning the developing head where it can dry later, where it can open into seed fluff, where wind can eventually carry the seeds away. It also connects the flower head to the plant's energy reserves below, leaves and root, quietly supplying what's needed. But the feeling of the stem matters too. The mood it creates, the impression of calm support. Because the stem doesn't look strained, doesn't look like it's powering through. It looks like it belongs there, like it has found a balanced posture and plans to keep it. And tonight, you can borrow that posture. Let your body feel supported by whatever is holding you. Mattress, pillow, blanket, the quiet air around you. Let your muscles soften into the idea that you don't have to hold yourself up so tightly. Your breath can be the stem's sway. Inhale, a gentle lift. Exhale, a gentle return. If your thoughts wobble a little, that's fine. The stem wobbles too. Wobbling isn't failure, it's flexibility. It's a sign that you're not rigid, and the night is kind to flexibility. Somewhere in the grass, the dandelion continues to hold its closed head above the leaves. Dew gathers along the stem in tiny beads, and the moonlight turns them into small, quiet highlights. It's not a big scene. It's not a loud moment. It's simply steadiness, soft, patient, and reliable. And as you listen, you can let that steadiness become contagious. Let your mind find its center again. Let your breathing settle. Let the day's weight slide off your shoulders like a coat you don't need to wear in bed. If you've ever snapped a dandelion stem or tugged a leaf, perhaps as a child, perhaps out of idle curiosity, you may remember the milky sap that appears almost immediately, a pale liquid, thick and quiet, as if the plant carries its own small supply of glue. That sap, called latex, is one of the dandelion's signatures. It seeps out to help seal tiny breaks, to discourage nibbling, and to protect the plant's inner tissues. It's not aggressive, it's not dramatic, it's just practical. The leaves, too, have a familiar look. They stretch outward from the center in jagged, tooth-like shapes, so much so that the name dandelion comes from an old phrase meaning lion's tooth, which is a charming name for something that spends most of its life calmly minding its own business. A lion's tooth, yes, but in the sleepiest, most well-behaved way possible. These leaves do their quiet work close to the ground, gathering light during the day, holding moisture, and staying sheltered in the slightly warmer layer of air near the soil. Their veins carry water and sugars. Their surfaces catch dew. Their edges collect little beads of night, and if we let ourselves be soothed by small details, We might notice how the leaf's shape feels like a gentle pattern, repeating points, repeating curves, like a calm, natural lace. The plant structure isn't here to impress, it's here to function. But the function itself becomes a kind of beauty, and there's a soft comfort in that, beauty that comes from simply being designed to live. Tonight, you don't need to be designed to impress either. You can be designed to rest. You can be designed to soften. You can be designed to breathe and recover. If your mind begins to pick at itself, reviewing, rethinking, replaying, you can imagine the plant's milky sap sealing small breaks, a gentle closure, a quiet, it's okay, a smooth covering over the tiny tears of the day. The dandelion does not dwell on what has been damaged. It seals and continues. It returns to its calm routine, and you can too. Let your thoughts become less sharp. Let them round off at the edges. Let the night soften them the way dew softens the look of grass. Somewhere out there, the dandelion leaves lie in their rosette shape, calm and close to the earth, while the plant continues its slow, steady cycle, unbothered, practical, quietly wise. Beneath the rosette and stem, beneath the dew and moonlight, the dandelion keeps its deepest steadiness underground. A single taproot reaches down into the soil, strong, direct, and patient. You don't see it, of course. Roots are private like that. They do important work without needing witnesses, and there is something reassuring about that kind of hidden support. The taproot anchors the plant, helping it stay steady through changing weather and shifting moisture. It also stores energy, sugars gathered from the leaves during the day and tucked away like a quiet savings account for later growth. When the plant needs to raise a stem, open a bloom, or form seeds, that stored energy can help. In simple terms, the root makes the above-ground calm possible. And the soil it lives in is often ordinary soil, compacted lawn earth, the edge of a footpath, a patch that has been stepped on and forgotten. The dandelion does not insist on perfect conditions. It doesn't wait for luxury. It works with what is available. It finds small pockets of space. It follows moisture. It settles into the ground as if it belongs there, which, in a way, it does. There's a soft lesson in that belonging. You don't have to be in perfect conditions to rest. You don't have to have the ideal day behind you. You don't have to feel completely sorted out to be allowed to sleep. You can rest in ordinary circumstances. You can settle into the night the way a root settles into soil, quietly, steadily, without needing applause. Imagine the underground world now, dark, cool, and calm. Tiny grains of soil, thin threads of roots from grasses nearby, moisture moving slowly through small spaces, microbes working quietly, turning old leaves into nourishment. Everything is happening, but nothing is rushing. And in that calm underground space, the dandelion root holds steady. It stores, it waits, it supports. Let your body feel supported like that. Let your breath become your root, deep, slow, steady. Inhale, settling downward. Exhale, sinking into comfort. The night is not asking you to do anything complicated. It's only offering you the simplest thing nature knows how to do: rest, recovery, and the quiet promise that you can begin again later. A dandelion rarely lives alone. Even when it looks like a single plant in a single patch of grass, it is surrounded, quietly, constantly, by a small neighborhood of life. The lawn edge, the path border, a little strip of green near a fence. These are not empty places. They are gentle ecosystems in miniature. At night, this miniature world feels even softer. The grass blades stand like a small forest. Dew forms along their tips, turning them into thin, shining reeds. The soil below holds warmth and moisture. The air above moves in slow, careful currents, like it doesn't want to disturb anything. Near the dandelion's leaves, tiny insects move with patient purpose. An ant follows a narrow route along a stem, as if it has an appointment somewhere important. A small beetle pauses in the shelter of a leaf edge, then continues on. Nothing looks frantic. Nothing looks urgent. It's more like everyone is doing quiet, ordinary errands. And below the surface, the slow work continues. Worms and small soil creatures shift the earth gently, opening tiny spaces for air and water. Microbes break down old plant material into nutrients. Roots from grasses and other plants weave through the ground like calm threads in a dark tapestry. The dandelion is part of this network. It gathers light, stores energy, and later offers pollen and nectar. It becomes a resting place for dew. It casts a small shade. It gives the soil a root channel. It is a piece of the environment's quiet architecture. When we think of ecosystems, we sometimes imagine something far away. Deep forests, wild coasts, distant plains. But the truth is, ecosystems can be small enough to fit under your shoe and still be wonderfully complex. The lawn edge is a reminder that nature doesn't require grandeur. It requires relationships. And perhaps that's why this scene feels comforting for sleep. It suggests you don't have to be big to matter. You don't have to be perfect to belong. You simply have to be part of something, breathing, resting, existing. If your mind starts cataloging responsibilities, you can set them down here. Imagine them like tiny pebbles placed gently beside the dandelion rosette. They don't need to be carried into the night. And if you want a faint smile before you drift deeper, this lawn edge neighborhood is likely more organized than most human group projects. No emails, no meetings, just quiet cooperation and gentle routines. In the softened dark, the dandelion remains steady at the center of its small world, surrounded, supported, and completely at home. After the bloom closes, the dandelion's flower head begins to change shape, very subtly. It doesn't look like much at first, just a small green bundle on a stem. But over time, it rounds and thickens, swelling gently, like a quiet thought becoming more certain. Inside, the hidden work continues. The tiny florets that formed the yellow disc are shifting into their next form. Seeds begin to develop, each one a small piece of future, each one patiently building itself. The outside stays calm. The green bracts hold everything in place. The stem remains steady. The rosette lies low, still collecting and sharing energy. The whole plant feels like it has moved from showing to making, from outward brightness to inward preparation. This stage is not glamorous, which is one reason it feels so restful to watch. It's a reminder that important things can happen without any visible excitement. No one needs to clap for the dandelion while it quietly builds a seed head. The dandelion doesn't care. It doesn't even seem to notice whether anyone is watching. It simply continues. The swelling itself is gentle. A small rounding here, a slight thickening there. It's the kind of change you might only notice if you return night after night, the way you might notice the moon shifting its shape over the weeks. Never sudden, always steady. And in this quiet development, the dandelion is teaching a soft bedtime lesson. You do not have to rush toward the next stage of your life. You can let it arrive slowly. You can let it form. You can let it become real in its own time. Imagine the seed head now, held above the grass like a calm green bead. The air is cool around it. Dew gathers lightly. The ground below remains supportive, holding moisture and nutrients. Everything feels contained and safe. Your own mind can follow that pattern tonight. Let your thoughts become less outward-facing. Let them fold inward and become quiet. Let your attention swell into comfort rather than worry. Let sleep form gradually, without any pressure to get there, because sleep is like this too. It begins invisibly. It gathers, it thickens, it becomes, and then, without any fanfare, it arrives. The dandelion continues its slow swell, the night continues its soft hush, and your breath continues, steady and quiet, like the world has finally remembered how to be gentle. The dandelion's future is written in air. Even while the seed head is still closed and green, the plant is preparing something astonishingly light. Each seed will form with a delicate tuft, fine, pale strands that will one day spread outward like a tiny umbrella. This tuft is called the pappus, and it turns a simple seed into a drifting traveler. It's a quiet engineering marvel, but it doesn't feel technical when you watch it in the mood of night. It feels like poetry in structure. The plant shapes itself to meet the world gently, using wind not as a force to resist, but as a companion. When the time comes, the wind will do the carrying, not by grabbing roughly, but by lifting softly, and the seeds will float, not like thrown objects, but like small intentions released into open space. For now, though, everything is still in preparation. The pappus forms in folded, compact ways inside the head. The seed develops its shape. The plant continues to store and balance energy. And the whole idea of being built for wind can feel soothing for a tired mind. Because wind is like life in a gentle metaphor. It moves whether we plan for it or not. It shifts. It changes direction. It arrives in quiet drafts and soft gusts. But the dandelion doesn't panic about it. It prepares to work with it. There's a simple calm in that. Tonight, you don't have to control every draft that moves through your thoughts. You don't have to lock the windows of your mind. You can let the air pass through gently. You can allow some thoughts to drift by without catching them. Imagine the future seeds, not yet visible, but already forming. Imagine their tiny parachutes folded like lace. Imagine the wind as a soft hand that will eventually lift them, not to cause chaos, but to offer possibility. And if you want a small bedtime smile, the dandelion has essentially mastered travel light. No suitcase, no baggage fees, just a tuft of fluff and a good attitude. In the quiet grass, the plant continues its calm construction. The night air stays cool and slow, and your breath follows that same design, built for drift, designed to soften, floating you closer to sleep with each gentle exhale. Dew is one of the night's quiet signatures. It arrives without noise, without announcement. collecting gently on leaf edges, grass tips, and the dandelion's closed head. By the time the sky begins to lighten, the world is wearing a thin layer of liquid silver, and dew has a subtle influence on the dandelion's coming seed release. When moisture gathers on the forming tufts, those fine strands that will later become parachutes, it adds weight. It clings between the delicate fibers. It holds them down, not harshly, just enough to slow their readiness. The plant remains patient. The seeds remain held. This is one of nature's soft timing tools. Release happens when conditions are right. Dry air helps the seed head open fully and let the parachute spread. Gentle breezes help seeds lift and float. Moisture can delay that moment, keeping things gathered and close a little longer, and that delay feels almost tender. A reminder that not everything has to happen as soon as it can. Sometimes it's better to wait until the air is ready. If you bring that thought to your own night, it can be soothing. You don't have to release every thought right now. You don't have to solve everything. You can let some things remain held, not as burdens, but as unopened parcels that can wait until tomorrow. Imagine dew on the grass. Imagine it on the dandelion's head. The night holds everything gently in place. The meadow looks softer because the water beads blur sharp edges, and your mind can soften like that too. Let the day's details bead up and become less distinct. Let them gather into small, harmless shapes rather than sharp points. Let them sit there quietly, reflecting moonlight, without pulling you into action. Somewhere nearby, the air is cool enough to feel clean. The world is quiet enough to feel safe. The dandelion remains steady, its future flights patiently delayed by moisture that acts like a gentle hand on the shoulder. Not yet. Not yet. Just rest a little longer. And as you breathe, slowly, steadily, feel yourself staying held in the same way. Supported, weighted pleasantly by blankets and calm, allowed to wait for sleep to arrive without chasing it. After enough time has passed, after the hidden work is done, after moisture and warmth and light have played their quiet roles, the dandelion changes again. The closed head loosens, the green bracts begin to fold back, and the familiar white sphere appears. It opens like a slow reveal, as if the plant is gently pulling a curtain aside. The seed head becomes a round globe of fine, pale parachutes. Each seed sits at the base of its tuft, and together they form a soft sphere that looks almost luminous in low light, like a small moon perched on a slender stem. In moonlight, it's especially fitting. A moon made of seeds beneath a moon in the sky. Two quiet circles, both familiar, both steady, both content to simply exist without explanations. The structure is delicate, but it doesn't feel fragile in an anxious way. It feels delicate in a peaceful way, like a feather resting on still air. The tufts spread outward, each one making space for the others. There's a sense of order, of calm geometry, and the plant stands there, unbothered, holding its sphere up into the air as if it's offering it to the night. From a gentle science standpoint, this is the dispersal stage. The dandelion's next chapter depends on drift. The seeds are designed to catch wind. The sphere is shaped for gradual release. But tonight, we don't need to rush to the purpose. We can simply sit with the image, a white globe in dark grass, dew shining on nearby blades, a faint breeze moving through, barely touching the tufts. The world feels quiet enough to hear your own breath, and if you want a soft smile before the next drift, the dandelion has created what looks like a tiny, extremely polite fireworks display, except it refuses to explode. It just floats, which is honestly more appropriate for bedtime. So let your thoughts become like those parachutes now, light, spread out, less tightly packed. You don't have to hold everything together. You can make space. Inhale, letting the mind widen gently. Exhale, letting it loosen, soften, and drift. The seed moon remains steady on its stem, waiting for the air to choose its moment. And you too can wait without effort, letting sleep come the same way wind comes, quietly, naturally, right on time. When the dandelion becomes a white sphere, it doesn't release everything at once. It doesn't empty itself in a single dramatic moment. Instead, it offers its seeds gradually, one here, a few there, depending on how the air moves. A breeze drifts through the grass, barely noticeable, and a handful of parachutes lift away. The sphere changes shape, not suddenly, but quietly. It becomes slightly uneven, slightly thinned, as if the wind is gently editing it, removing a few lines, keeping the tone soft, leaving the story airy. This gradual release is one of the calmest parts of the cycle. It feels unforced, unhurried, almost considerate. From a gentle science view, it makes sense. If seeds leave in different moments, they land in different places. They travel under different conditions. It spreads possibility across time and space without needing to guarantee anything. The dandelion doesn't insist on one perfect outcome. It makes many small chances and lets the world do the carrying. And tonight, that can feel like a relief. You don't have to release your whole mind in one go. You don't need to fix everything before sleeping. You can let a few thoughts drift away now and leave the rest for later. Imagine the wind moving through the seed head. It touches the tufts lightly, like fingertips. A seed lifts and floats, not as a loss, but as a gentle letting go. Another seed follows, then a pause, then another. The pauses matter. The pauses are the calm. The night is full of pauses, between breaths, between sounds, between thoughts. Sleep is not a sprint into unconsciousness. It's a soft sequence of releases. So if your mind is holding on to something, an unfinished task, a conversation, a worry, you can treat it like a seed on the sphere. You don't need to yank it free. You can wait for the right breeze, inhale, and feel the air arrive. Exhale, and let one small thought lift. Just one. Then rest. Even the dandelion rests between releases. It doesn't chase the wind. It doesn't force the outcome. It stands quietly and lets the air do what air does best, move gently, arrive unpredictably, and still be helpful. The sphere becomes a little thinner over time, not in a sad way, but in a natural way, like a hand opening slowly, like a grip loosening. And in that quiet editing, the dandelion shows you a soft skill. Letting go can be gradual, almost tender. One seed at a time, one thought at a time, one breath at a time. Let's follow just one seed. It rests at the edge of the white sphere, held lightly by the dandelion structure, as if it's waiting for permission. The parachute tuft spreads outward like a tiny umbrella, a delicate circle of fine strands. In moonlight, those strands look almost luminous, like pale threads catching the night. A breeze arrives, not a forceful gust, just a small movement of air, a gentle shift that brushes the grass and slides up along the stem. The seed loosens, the parachute catches the air, and suddenly the seed is no longer resting. It is floating. It lifts as if the world has decided to carry it. This is the quiet magic of the pappus. The tuft increases drag, slowing the fall, letting the seed ride the air. In simple terms, it turns a drop into a drift. It changes gravity from an immediate downward pull into a slow, graceful descent, and watching it, imagining it, can feel like watching a heavy thought become lighter. So many of our thoughts are like seeds before release, attached, held in place by habit, by attention, by the mind's desire to keep checking the same spot. But a thought doesn't have to stay stuck. It can lift, it can float, it can become less dense. Picture the seed now, drifting above the grass. The parachute rotates slightly. The seed swings under it like a small pendant. It moves in tiny arcs, guided by currents you can't quite see. It doesn't know where it's going, and that's fine. Seeds are not control enthusiasts. They are the opposite of micromanagers. And you don't need to micromanage your mind tonight either. If a thought arises, you can let it be like that seed, present, then lighter, then drifting out of the center of attention. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to grab it. You can let the breeze of your breath move it along. Inhale, a gentle lift. Exhale, a gentle drift. The seed continues floating. It passes over a dark leaf. It glides above dew-bright grass tips. The world below looks soft and textured, like a quilt stitched from shadows. And as you imagine this one quiet flight, let your body settle further into stillness. Let your thoughts become less attached to outcomes. Let them become lighter, more spacious, more willing to float. The seed drifts on, and you drift with it, calmly, gently, toward sleep. Eventually, the seed lands, not with a thud, not with a dramatic arrival. It simply settles. The parachute slows everything down until landing feels more like resting. It might come down in a patch of soil where the grass is thin. It might slip into a small crack beside a sidewalk. It might land on a bit of moss that holds moisture. It might rest against a leaf until the next breeze moves it again. Nothing about the landing needs to be perfect. It only needs to be possible. This is another quiet comfort in the dandelion story. Its future is not dependent on one ideal spot. It doesn't require a carefully prepared bed with perfect conditions and a welcome sign. It simply tries many places gently, and some of those places will be enough. From a simple science view, the seed still needs the right conditions later: moisture, warmth, contact with soil, to sprout. But tonight, we can stay with the softness of the landing itself. Because the landing is restful, it's the end of a small drift and the beginning of a quiet waiting. The seed doesn't immediately do anything. It doesn't sprout on command. It rests where it is, sometimes for a while. It allows time to pass. It lets weather and seasons do their slow work. And you can do that too. You don't have to arrive at sleep perfectly. You don't have to land in the ideal mental state. You can simply settle. You can rest where you are. Sleep often comes not when everything is arranged, but when we stop demanding a perfect arrangement. Imagine your body now as the seed's landing place, supported, steady, comfortable enough. Imagine your mind as the seed itself, small, light, willing to rest. If thoughts keep fluttering, like parachutes catching tiny drafts, you can let them settle gradually. You can let them land without ceremony. No announcements, no evaluations, just settling. The night air remains cool. The grass remains soft. Somewhere, the dandelion sphere continues releasing seeds slowly, but you don't need to follow everyone. One is enough. The idea is enough. You have drifted. Now you can land. Inhale, settle, exhale, rest. And in that gentle landing, the day becomes quieter and farther away, like a path behind you in the fog. Now we return to our gentle question. What does the ground remember when dandelions return? The earth doesn't remember in words. It doesn't keep a diary. It doesn't replay scenes in its head at 3 a.m. Soil is not an overthinker. Soil is a holder, a keeper, a quiet archivist of patterns. It remembers through structure. It remembers in the shape of pores where roots once traveled. It remembers in layers of decomposed leaves that become dark richness. It remembers in tiny channels left by worms and water. It remembers in the way moisture lingers in some places and slips away quickly in others. And it remembers through the simple fact that life tends to return where life has succeeded before. A dandelion grows, and its root loosens the soil slightly. It creates a path for air and water. Later, the plant rests and returns its materials back to the ground. Microbes and insects take their time breaking down what remains. Nutrients cycle through. The place changes, even if it looks the same on the surface. In this way, the ground remembers the dandelion by becoming a place that can welcome it again. There is something profoundly comforting about that kind of memory. It isn't judgmental. It isn't sentimental. It doesn't clutch. It simply holds and transforms. And if you're tired, you might like that style of remembering. You don't have to remember everything sharply. You don't have to keep the day in high definition. You can let it become soil memory, softened, filtered, composted into something less heavy. Imagine your worries sinking gently down like fallen leaves, not disappearing exactly, but changing form, becoming less sharp, becoming part of a quiet cycle instead of a loud repetition. The ground remembers by holding what falls and turning it into something usable, restful, integrated. And perhaps that's what sleep does too. Sleep receives the day. It holds it. It reorganizes it quietly. It smooths edges. It stores what matters and lets the rest thin out like seeds in the wind. So tonight, you can let your mind become more like the earth, less like a screen playing highlights, more like a soft ground receiving what comes. And somewhere in the grass, the dandelion cycle continues, trusting that memory doesn't have to be loud to be real. If there is one skill dandelions practice exceptionally well, it is patience. Not passive patience, the kind that feels like waiting in a long line. This is active patience, the quiet kind that keeps doing what it can while letting time do what only time can do. A dandelion waits for the right light to open. It waits for the right timing to close. It waits while seeds form. It waits for the air to dry. It waits for wind that arrives when it arrives. It does not rush the world. It simply stays ready, and that readiness is gentle, not tense. We sometimes confuse patience with strain, like holding ourselves still by force. But plant patience is softer. It's the patience of a leaf resting in sunlight, the patience of a root storing energy, the patience of a seed waiting quietly for moisture. It's patience without clenching, which is excellent bedtime wisdom. Tonight, you don't have to force sleep. You can be ready for it in the dandelion way, quietly, calmly, without gripping. You can let your body soften into the conditions. You can let your breathing settle. You can let your mind stop checking the clock. Time will do its part. And if your thoughts try to hurry you, if they say, "We should be asleep by now," you can gently disagree. You can remember the dandelion's pace. Nothing good is rushed, and nothing natural is ashamed of taking its time. If you want a faint smile, dandelions would be terrible at deadlines. They would simply blink slowly and say, "We are currently blooming. Please try again later." And yet, they get everything done. They bloom, they seed, they return. So let patience spread through you now like warmth in the soil. Let it move slowly. Let it be steady. Inhale, patience arriving. Exhale, patience settling. The night is not an exam. It is not a performance. It is a space to rest. And the dandelion, quietly competent, calmly persistent, continues its cycle as proof that slowness can be effective and rest can be part of the work. If you kneel down beside a dandelion, just in your imagination, gently, without disturbing the dew, you find yourself at the edge of a small universe, not a dramatic universe, a quiet one, a neighborhood made of grass blades, tiny shadows, soft soil, and slow-moving lives. In a single square of ground, so much is happening. An ant threads along a stem like it knows exactly where it's going. A small beetle rests under a leaf edge, using it like a green roof. Somewhere close, a worm shifts through soil, widening a channel that will later hold air and water. Microbes, too small to see, continue their steady work of breaking down old plant material into nutrients that can be used again. Nothing looks rushed. Nothing looks loud. It's a kind of quiet industry, like a night shift that prefers not to turn on the overhead lights. The dandelion sits at the center of this small web, not as a ruler, but as a participant. Its leaves shade tiny patches of soil. Its root loosens the ground and creates pathways that other roots can follow. Its bloom offers pollen and nectar during the day. Its seeds feed small birds or drift to become new plants elsewhere. Even when the plant is still, it is connected. And this is a comforting thought for sleep. You don't have to be busy to be part of something. In our human lives, we sometimes measure worth by output, but nature measures worth by presence and relationship. A dandelion doesn't achieve its place in the ecosystem. It simply exists, and in existing, it provides. You can do that too. Tonight, you don't need to justify your rest. You don't need to earn sleep by finishing everything. You can simply be here, breathing, settling, letting the day loosen its grip. Imagine the small lives around the plant, each one in its own calm routine. Imagine the soil holding them all like a quiet foundation. Imagine the air above, cool and gentle, moving slowly. And if you'd like a soft smile before you drift further, this little neighborhood is very functional, very cooperative, and somehow no one is sending follow-up emails. It's as if the whole ecosystem has agreed on a single rule. Do your part quietly, then rest. The dandelion remains steady. The small lives continue, and you too are allowed to be one small life in one small place, settling into a night that is big enough to hold you. Dandelions are excellent at adaptation, and they practice it without any fuss. They do not announce their resilience. They simply adjust quietly to whatever the ground and weather offer. They grow in lawns where soil is compacted. They grow at the edges of paths where feet have pressed the earth down. They appear in cracks near sidewalks where the world seems too hard for anything soft to live. And still, there they are, green rosettes against gray stone, yellow blooms against ordinary grass. Their strategy is calm, almost elegant. The leaves stay low, close to the warmth and shelter of the ground. The taproot reaches down, storing energy and finding moisture. The flower rises when it's time, and the seeds drift away when the air is ready. Each step fits the conditions, not by force, but by timing. Adaptation in nature is often portrayed as a dramatic response, but it can also be quiet responsiveness. The dandelion doesn't fight its environment. It listens to it through light, temperature, moisture, and then it becomes what makes sense. This is why it feels poetic. The plant is like a small, living line of verse written into the landscape wherever space allows. And for a tired mind, adaptation can be soothing because it offers permission. You don't have to do things the perfect way. You can do them the workable way. Tonight, you can rest in that permission. If your day wasn't ideal, you can still soften. If your plan shifted, you can still settle. If your mind is messy, you can still sleep. You don't have to wait for perfect conditions to begin resting. You can be like the dandelion, quietly making the best of the available space. Imagine the plant in a small crack of earth, dew resting on its leaves, the night air cooling around it. Nothing about the scene is extravagant, and yet it's enough. It's living proof that enough can be simple. And if you want a gentle laugh in the dark, dandelions would be terrible at being high maintenance. They'd be like, "We will bloom right here. Thank you." And then proceed to look cheerful about it. So let that cheerfulness enter your night, not as excitement, but as calm confidence. Let your body adapt into comfort. Let your breath find a slow rhythm. Let your mind stop insisting on perfection and start accepting softness. The dandelion adapts, the night adapts, and you can adapt into sleep. The dandelion cycle is a small version of the seasons. A bud forms and waits, like late winter gathering itself into quiet potential. A bloom opens, bright and warm, like spring sunlight touching the ground. The flower closes and shifts inward, like summer moving from display to depth. A seed head appears, white and airy, like autumn turning the world into drifting pieces of the future. And then the seeds rest, sometimes for a while, like winter again, still, patient, waiting. All of this can happen in a small patch of grass, even within a single season, repeating in gentle waves. The plant doesn't need a grand landscape to express the rhythm of life. It can do it in a yard, on a roadside, at the edge of a garden. That is one of nature's quiet gifts. Big patterns can live in small places. If you listen to the night, you can almost feel the seasonal rhythm in the air. The temperature dips slightly as the hours move on. Dew collects and then evaporates later. Insects change their volume. Light shifts even before dawn. The world is always moving, but slowly, like an old song played softly. Tonight, you can let your mind enter that seasonal rhythm. Maybe your day was like a bright bloom, full, open, active. Now you can let it close. Now you can let it become seed-making time, internal, quiet, restorative. Because rest is not an interruption of life, it is part of the cycle. And if your mind tries to argue, if it says, we should keep thinking, you can gently remind it. Even the dandelion closes its flower. Even the dandelion rests. The plant is not anxious about pauses. It relies on them. Imagine a tiny season happening in the grass. The bloom's warmth fading. The seed head's whiteness forming. The night's coolness settling. Let your thoughts follow that pattern, moving from outward to inward, from bright to quiet. Inhale, as if opening gently. Exhale, as if closing softly. And if you want a small bedtime smile, the dandelion's seasonal schedule is wonderfully uncomplicated. It never says, we're overbooked. It never says, we can't fit rest in. It simply makes room. So tonight, make room too. Let the seasons in miniature guide you toward the simplest phase of all. The phase where you stop doing and start being. The phase where you rest. Nature is full of cooperation that doesn't ask for credit. A dandelion offers nectar and pollen, and insects visit. Insects get food, the plant gets pollination. Wind carries scent. Soil holds moisture. Microbes turn old matter into nutrients. Worms open channels. Birds take seeds. Seeds land and sometimes grow. Everything participates, and no one writes a press release. It's quiet cooperation, practical, ordinary, and profoundly effective. The dandelion story is not a solo performance. Even if it looks like a single plant standing in a patch of grass, it's always part of a network. Air, water, light, soil, insects, all of them shape the cycle. And perhaps that's one reason the cycle feels soothing. It reminds us we are not required to do everything alone. Even the most self-sufficient looking plant still depends on the ground beneath it and the air above it. Even the drifting seed depends on wind to move. Even the root depends on moisture finding its way through soil. Cooperation is not always visible. It often looks like nothing at all. It looks like stillness, like holding, like allowing. Tonight, you can let yourself be held by quiet cooperation too. Your bed holds you. Your blanket holds warmth. Your breath holds rhythm. Your body holds the knowledge of how to relax muscles and slow the heart. You don't have to command it. It already knows. If your mind has been carrying everything today, every plan, every detail, every responsibility, you can set some of that down. You can allow the night to cooperate with you. Inhale and let the air do its part, entering smoothly. Exhale and let gravity do its part, settling you down. A dandelion doesn't cling tightly to its seeds forever. It cooperates with wind by letting go gradually. It trusts the network. And if you want a soft smile, the dandelion's teamwork style is very low maintenance. No meetings, no agendas, just we'll bloom, you visit. The wind can handle delivery. Tonight, you can be low maintenance too. You don't have to manage your sleep. You can allow it. You can cooperate with it. You can let it unfold naturally. The dandelion cycle continues in quiet partnership with the world. And you can drift into rest the same way, supported by systems you don't have to think about, carried by rhythms older than worry. There's a particular gentleness in the way a dandelion lets go. The seed sphere does not empty itself all at once. It releases gradually, almost thoughtfully. A few parachutes lift away with one small breeze. Then there is stillness, then another breeze, and another tiny release. It's as if the plant is practicing the art of loosening, one soft motion at a time. And in that, it offers a bedtime lesson that doesn't feel like advice. It feels like permission. You can let go in small pieces. You don't have to drop everything. You don't have to solve everything. You don't have to force a clean ending to the day. You can simply loosen your grip gently, one thought at a time, like seeds leaving a sphere. Imagine the seed head in moonlight. Some parachutes remain, some have already drifted. The sphere is now a little uneven, slightly thinned, but still beautiful. It doesn't look ruined. It looks like a process in progress, like a hand slowly opening. That's a soothing image for a mind that likes to control outcomes. It suggests that incompleteness can be natural, that the middle of a transition can still be calm. Tonight, if you notice a worry, you can treat it like a single seed. Hold it lightly. Don't wrestle with it. Don't force it away. Simply allow the next exhale to become a breeze. Inhale, gathering calm. Exhale, letting one small thing drift, then rest. The pauses are as important as the releases. A dandelion does not spend the whole night losing seeds. It waits, it stands, it allows quiet, and you can do the same. You can release a thought, then rest in the space that follows. You can let silence be part of the process. If you'd like a faint smile, the dandelion is a master of decluttering. It doesn't Marie Kondo its seeds with enthusiasm. It just calmly lets them go when the air is ready. Gentle minimalism, very bedtime friendly. So let your mind become a little lighter now. Let it thin out like the sphere thinning over time. Let it become airy and spacious. The dandelion continues its gradual letting go. The night continues its slow hush. And you continue drifting, one soft release at a time, towards sleep. When a dandelion seed drifts, it doesn't look for a perfect home. It looks for a possible one. A patch of soil that holds a bit of moisture. A thin place in the grass where light can reach. A crack that collects dust and warmth. A spot that is simply workable. And there is something deeply soothing in that. Because home, in the natural world, is often not about perfection. It's about being received. It's about the ground saying quietly, you can rest here, you can settle here, you can wait here. A seed lands without ceremony. It doesn't ask for permission with words. It doesn't present a resume. It doesn't worry whether the neighborhood has the right vibe. It simply settles and allows time to unfold. If your life has felt like a lot of searching, searching for the right answer, the right pace, the right version of yourself, then the seed's approach can feel like relief. It suggests that belonging doesn't always require effort. Sometimes, belonging is simply being received. Tonight, you can let your bed be that receiving place. You don't have to arrive in the perfect mood. You don't have to feel completely peaceful to be allowed to rest. You can show up exactly as you are. Tired, full, half-finished, still carrying a few thoughts, and let the night receive you anyway. Imagine the seed settling into a small pocket of earth. The soil is cool around it. It is dark, but not scary, more like a blanket of quiet. Above, the grass softens the wind. Dew gathers. The world turns slowly, and the seed rests. It might wait for rain. It might wait for warmth. It might wait for spring. That waiting is not failure. It's part of the cycle. You can wait too. If sleep isn't immediate, you can still rest. You can still soften. You can still be received by this moment. The night does not require instant results. It simply offers time. And if you want a gentle smile before you drift, the dandelion seed is remarkably confident for something so small. It lands and basically says, "This seems fine," and then begins its quiet plan. Tonight you can also say, "This seems fine." Inhale, receiving. Exhale, settling. Let home be the place that receives you, without questions, without conditions, without needing you to be anything other than present. Now softly, we return to our question. What does the ground remember when dandelions return? Perhaps it remembers in the simplest way possible, by making room. The soil holds the impressions of old roots and old seasons. It holds the pathways where water once traveled. It holds the quiet leftovers of leaves that fell and slowly became nourishment. It holds tiny changes that add up season after season, like a story written in layers. And when dandelions return, the ground doesn't act surprised. It receives them like an old familiar pattern, not sentimental, not dramatic, just steady. This kind of remembering is calm. It doesn't replay the past loudly. It doesn't cling. It doesn't judge. It simply holds and continues. That can be a comforting model for your own mind tonight. You do not have to replay your day in sharp detail. You don't have to relive moments as if they're still happening. You can let your mind remember the way the ground remembers, softly, by absorbing, by smoothing, by turning what happened into something less heavy. Sleep does this naturally. It receives the day and quiets it. It filters it. It stores what matters and lets the rest dissolve into gentle background. So tonight, you can let your thoughts become more like soil, dark, quiet, supportive, a place where things can settle, a place where sharp edges soften. Imagine the dandelion cycle repeating somewhere in the grass. Imagine seeds landing. Imagine roots returning. Imagine the ground holding it all with patient acceptance. And now, imagine your own body as that ground. Let your shoulders be the earth that receives the weight of the day. Let your chest be the place where breath can settle. Let your mind be the surface where thoughts can land and then quiet down. Inhale, a gentle receiving. Exhale, a gentle release. The question doesn't need an answer. It only needs to echo softly while you drift, because the echo itself becomes a lullaby. The idea that returning is natural, that being received is natural, that cycles are safe. The ground remembers, not by gripping, but by holding gently. And you too can hold gently now. Your breath, your body, your quiet. As the night deepens, the air seems to become smoother. The breeze, if it comes at all, arrives like a whisper and leaves like a whisper. The grass moves slightly, then stills. Dew thickens into brighter beads, softening the texture of the world. Nothing sharp remains for long. The seed head, if you picture it, is now a little thinner than before. Some parachutes have drifted away, some remain. The sphere looks gently edited by the air, shaped over time without force. This is the mood of the night, slow shaping without struggle. And you can let that mood enter you. Let the air smooth the edges of your thoughts. Let it blur the details that don't need to be carried forward. Let it cool the heat of overthinking. Sometimes the mind tries to grip onto the day as if it must be fully processed immediately. But nature doesn't do that. Nature processes slowly, gradually, calmly. Water smooths stone over time. Wind shapes a hillside over years. Roots loosen soil season after season. No one expects instant transformation. So tonight, you can let yourself be unfinished. You can let your mind be mid-process. You can let sleep do the slow work it does best. Imagine your thoughts as little bits of dust in the air. When you stop moving, they settle. When you stop stirring, they fall to the ground. Stillness becomes a kind of cleaning. Inhale and feel the air move in, cool and steady. Exhale and feel the air move out, carrying loosened thoughts away. If you notice a worry, you don't have to wrestle it. You can let it become part of the air's smoothing. You can allow it to soften at the edges until it feels less like a problem and more like a passing shape. And if you want the faintest smile, the night is very good at tidying up, but it does it with zero enthusiasm. It doesn't rush around. It simply dims the lights until everything looks gentler. Let the dimming happen now. Your body can sink a little deeper. Your breathing can slow a little more. Your mind can become less interested in holding anything tightly. Night air keeps smoothing the world, and you can drift in that smoothing, quiet, steady, and safely on your way to sleep. In the stillness, you can almost imagine the meadow breathing, not like a dramatic inhale and exhale, more like a gentle expansion and release. The grass shifts slightly when the breeze passes. Then it returns. A few leaves tremble, then rest. The whole landscape seems to move in slow agreement with the air. The dandelion, too, participates in this breathing. Its stem bends, then steadies. Its seed head, if it still holds parachutes, adjusts subtly, almost imperceptibly, as if it's listening to the wind's quiet suggestions. Nothing here is rigid. That softness, flexible, responsive, can be a lullaby for the nervous system. It's a reminder that you do not have to stay tense to be safe. You can soften and still be held. You can release and still remain. Let your breathing match the meadow now. Inhale, slowly, like a breeze passing through grass. Exhale, slowly, like the grass settling back into place. If thoughts appear, they can be like small movements in the leaves. They don't need to become a storm. They can simply flutter and then quiet down. And the night encourages quieting. Sound becomes simpler. Distant insects hum at a steady, low volume. A far-off dog might bark once, then settle. The world does not keep talking. It becomes comfortable with silence. If your mind is used to noise, inner noise, planning noise, commentary noise, you can let it learn from the meadow. The meadow does not narrate itself. It simply is. You can simply be too. This is a good moment to let factual thoughts fade. You don't need to remember names, stages, processes. You can keep only the mood, softness, rhythm, breath, gentle drift. If you want a tiny humor line, quiet enough to not wake anything, the meadow is excellent at mindfulness. It never checks its phone. It never wonders what everyone else is doing. It just meadows, and you can just rest. Let your shoulders drop a fraction. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue rest in your mouth as if it has nothing to say. Inhale and feel the body widen softly. Exhale and feel it settle. The meadow continues its slow breathing. The dandelion continues its calm participation. You continue drifting, carried by rhythm rather than effort, easing closer to the place where sleep feels natural. Now the night begins to feel like a closing, not a sharp ending, not a door slamming shut, more like a gentle curtain being drawn slowly as the last light fades and the world becomes comfortably indistinct. The dandelion has already shown us how to close softly. The bloom opened when it was time, and later it folded inward again without regret. The seed head opened when it was ready, and now it releases gradually, allowing the wind to take what it will. Everything in this cycle knows how to transition without panic. So tonight, you can close your day the same way. You don't need a perfect conclusion. You don't need a final checklist. You don't need to tie every loose thread. Some threads can remain loose. Some questions can remain unanswered. The night is not asking you to finish everything. It's asking you to soften. Imagine the last few seeds drifting away. A small movement, a small release, then quiet again. The plant stands there, still dignified, still calm, even as it becomes less full, less complete. In the natural world, completion is not a single moment. It's a gradual easing into the next phase, and sleep is like that. Sleep begins as a soft closing, less alertness, less detail, less interest in the day's sharp edges. Your body begins to lower its volume. Your muscles loosen. Your breathing becomes a steady background rhythm. Let that closing happen now. Inhale, as if drawing a curtain gently. Exhale, as if dimming the lights. If a thought returns, something unfinished, treat it kindly. You can say quietly, "Not tonight." You can place it down like a small object on a bedside table. It will still be there tomorrow if it truly needs you. Most thoughts, when left alone, become less demanding. And if you want one last whisper of humor before everything quiets, the dandelion has never once stayed awake thinking, "Should I have bloomed differently?" It simply blooms, then rests. A very healthy habit. So let your own habit be rest now. Let the day close softly. Let the night hold you. Let your attention drift away from doing and into being. And as the landscape becomes quieter, grass smoothing, air easing, dew settling, allow your eyes to feel heavy, your mind to feel wide and slow, and your whole self to become comfortable with the simplest truth of all. You are allowed to sleep. Now we drift into the part of the night where nothing needs to be explained. The world is still doing what it does, but it does it quietly, so quietly that you can stop trying to follow it and simply rest inside it. Dew gathers a little more on the grass. The beads grow rounder, heavier, and brighter in the low light. Each one holds a soft reflection, as if the night has scattered tiny mirrors across the ground, but chose the kind that don't show your to-do list. The dandelion's leaves remain close to the soil, settled in their rosette. The stem is steady. The root is deeper still, holding the plant in ordinary earth that feels perfectly sufficient. Nothing is rushing, nothing is calling for attention. The whole scene feels like it has exhaled and decided to stay there. Underground, the world is calm in a different way. The soil is cool. It is close. It holds moisture in small pockets, and it holds time without trying to measure it. Tiny life continues in the dark, slow, steady, unbothered. No one is trying to be impressive. No one is trying to do too much at once. It's just quiet continuation. And if you let yourself imagine it, that underground calm can become a kind of anchor for your own body. Your breath can be like the root, deep and steady, reaching down into comfort. Inhale, settling. Exhale, holding. You don't need to chase sleep. You don't need to reach for it. You can let it arrive the way dew arrives, gradually, silently, without any performance. The dandelion is a good teacher of this. It doesn't force. It doesn't argue with the night. It simply belongs to the rhythm and lets the rhythm carry it. Let the rhythm carry you now. Let your shoulders sink. Let your face soften. Let your hands rest as if they have nothing left to hold. If your thoughts appear, let them be small and distant, like faint shapes on a dark horizon, present but not demanding. And if you want the smallest lullaby-sized smile, even the dirt is calm. The dirt is not stressed about anything. The dirt has never once worried about its 5-year plan. The dirt just holds things kindly and lets them change. You can do that too. You can hold this moment kindly. You can let the day change form. You can let it become quieter and less distinct until it feels like it belongs to yesterday. Dew gathers, roots hold, the night stays gentle, and you drift slowly into stillness. Somewhere in the grass, a dandelion seed head still holds a few pale parachutes, fine strands spread like soft lace. In moonlight, the remaining tufts glow faintly, not bright, not showy, just luminous enough to feel like a small kindness. The sphere is not perfectly full anymore. It has been thinned by breezes. It is uneven in places. And somehow, that makes it even calmer to look at. It's a quiet reminder that being partly released is still beautiful. A breeze moves through, so lightly that it barely counts as movement. The tufts tremble, then settle. One parachute lifts away, slow as a sigh. It drifts upward a little, then forward, then down, as if the air is carrying it like a careful hand. You don't have to follow it far. You can just notice the idea of drifting, the idea of lightness. Let your thoughts become lighter now, not by forcing them away, but by allowing them to spread out, less concentrated, less intense, less urgent. A thought can exist without gripping you. It can float at the edge of attention and then move on. Inhale, a quiet widening. Exhale, a quiet loosening. The seed head stands there, a small moon of threads beneath the larger moon above. The grass is dark and soft, and dew catches small points of light. The whole world looks like it has been wrapped in a thin layer of gentleness. If your mind is still awake, still curious, still wandering, that's okay. It can wander the way wind wanders, without needing a reason. It can drift like the seed, without needing a destination. And if you want a tiny bedtime smile, dandelion seeds are very committed to the concept of going with the flow. They don't even pretend to have a schedule. They're like, we'll land when we land. And somehow it works out. So let your own inner schedule soften. You don't need to decide when sleep arrives. You don't need to monitor it. You can simply create the conditions for drift. Softer muscles, slower breath, a quieter mind. The white tufts tremble, then rest. The air stays gentle, and you drift too like a small parachute on the calmest wind, moving towards sleep with no effort, no urgency, only the slow and steady comfort of being carried. As the night deepens, sound becomes simpler. A faint insect hum in the distance, steady and low. The whisper of leaves, almost too soft to count as a sound. The quiet shift of air moving through grass. These are not noises that demand attention. They are sounds that allow the mind to stop listening so hard. And in that softened soundscape, your own breathing can become the main rhythm. In and out, slow and steady, like a tide that doesn't care what time it is. If you imagine the dandelion patch now, it is mostly still. Grass blades stand quietly with dew at their tips. A seed head, if it remains, holds a few parachutes like pale eyelashes in the moonlight. The soil underneath is calm and cool. Everything feels padded, as if the night has placed soft fabric over sharp edges. You can let your mind become padded too. Thoughts may still appear, little flickers of memory, small plans, brief images, but they do not need to sharpen into focus. They can stay blurry. They can stay distant, like the insect hum, present, but not demanding. If your mind starts analyzing, you can gently redirect it towards sensation, the weight of your blanket, the softness of your pillow, the steady temperature of the air. These are quiet facts your body understands without effort. Inhale, feel the chest rise slightly. Exhale, feel it fall. Let the exhale be a little longer than the inhale, as if you're telling the body, it's safe to settle. The world outside is doing the same. Wind slows. The ground holds steady. The dandelion cycle continues, but you don't need to track it. The details can fade. The only important thing now is the feeling of being held by the night. And if you want a tiny, almost inaudible smile, the insects have mastered consistency. They never seem to get distracted halfway through their own soundtrack. They hum like professionals. Calm, steady, committed to ambiance. Let that ambiance carry you now. Let your jaw soften. Let your forehead smooth. Let your hands feel warm and heavy. If you notice a last stray thought, you can let it float away like a parachute, gently, without arguing with it. Small sounds remain, soft, steady, friendly, and you drift deeper into stillness, where sleep becomes less like something you do and more like something you allow. In nature, endings rarely look like endings. They look like changing forms. A bloom closes and seed making begins. A seed drifts and resting begins. A leaf falls, and soil making begins. Everything becomes something else, quietly, without needing a dramatic goodbye. The dandelion cycle is full of these gentle transformations. Yellow becomes green. Green becomes white. White becomes drift. Drift becomes land. Land becomes waiting. Waiting becomes growth later when conditions are kind. Nothing is lost. It simply changes shape. And that thought is a soft place to rest your mind. Because the day, too, can change shape now. It doesn't have to stay sharp. It doesn't have to remain loud in your head. It can become quieter, softer, less immediate. Sleep is a transformation like that. It receives the day and changes it into something less heavy. It takes the bright, busy parts of waking life and turns them into a calmer form, like a flower folding into itself, like a seed settling into soil. So if you are holding on to anything tonight, anything unresolved, anything imperfect, you can let it change shape rather than forcing it to disappear. Let it become less sharp. Let it become less urgent. Let it become something the night can hold. Inhale and feel the body gather calm. Exhale and feel the mind soften. If you want a micro-humor line, quiet as a lullaby, even the stones seem relaxed. They've had a long time to practice, and they are remarkably good at not doing. You can practice that now too. Not doing, not fixing, not reaching, just resting. Imagine the dandelion patch under moonlight, dew shining gently. The seed head is thinner now, perhaps nearly bare, perhaps still holding a few tufts. Either way, it stands calmly, unconcerned with how much has already drifted away. It has done its part. It continues being itself. And you have done your part today too, simply by moving through the day. Now you can let the night change your shape, from effort to ease, from thinking to drifting, from holding to resting. Nothing is lost, only changed. And the change you are allowed tonight is sleep. Now we let the story dissolve into quiet. The grass is dark and soft. Dew rests on every surface it can find, rounding edges, smoothing textures, making the world look gentler than it did in daylight. The air is cool and steady, moving slowly, more like a calm presence than a wind. Somewhere, a dandelion stands in its small patch of earth. Its leaves are low, its stem is still, its root holds steady underground, deep in ordinary soil that has quietly supported everything tonight. If there are seeds left, they wait. If the seeds have already drifted, the plant remains. Either way, there is no urgency, no sense that anything is late, only the feeling of a cycle continuing, patient and safe. Let your breath become part of that cycle. Inhale, like evening wind entering softly. Exhale, like the wind leaving, unhurried. Let the exhale carry away the need to understand, the need to plan, the need to hold on. Let the exhale be the last gentle breeze that lifts a final parachute from your attention, leaving the mind a little emptier, a little lighter, a little more spacious. The night is good at spaciousness. It doesn't crowd you. It doesn't demand. It simply surrounds you with quiet. And in that quiet, you can feel a kind of belonging, like the wild has made room for you to rest. If your thoughts appear, let them be distant. Let them be soft silhouettes. Let them pass without needing a response. And if you want a final tiny smile before everything fades, The dandelion never worries about whether it did its cycle right. It simply lives it. It blooms when it blooms. It rests when it rests. It lets go when the air arrives. You can do the same tonight. You don't have to force the perfect sleep. You can simply allow your body to do what bodies do when they are safe and tired. Slow down, soften, drift. And now we close, quietly, gently, with the fixed final lines. Everything flows through the wild. Sleep in that motion.